so much. Good morning. It's great to be back in Jacksonville. I want to thank JAXPORT for hosting us and appreciate all the good work they've done. You know, when we had all the supply chain problems, JAXPORT really served as a place where people could divert, and I know they've expanded their business as a result of it. So we're appreciative to have that here in the state of Florida. It's definitely helped our economy. We have with us today Jimmy Petronis, the Chief Financial Officer in Florida. We have our Speaker of the Florida House, Paul Renner, with us here. We've got Senator Aaron Grahl and Representative Bob Rommel with us here today. And then we'll be offering some words after we go through our announcement. We have Laura DiBenedetto, co-owner of Sovereign Ammo in Bunnell, Florida. We have Tina Diskovich, co-founder of Moms for Liberty, and April Carney, school board member here with Duval County Public Schools. So I want to thank them for being here and thank them for participating. So last year we said that we were going to take action to combat something that is called ESG. And it stands for Environment, Social Governance Standards. But what it really is an attempt by elites to impose ideology through business institutions, financial institutions, and our economy writ large. And so they have a vision. This vision is not a vision that usually can win elections, and so they want to go around that process, and they want to use economic power to impose this agenda on our society. And we think in Florida that is not going to fly here. We want to have an economy that's based on value, that's based on the best interests of beneficiaries, if you're talking about a pension fund, and we don't want to have an economy in which these businesses are taking all these positions on political issues or using shareholder assets to advance an ideological agenda. And so you've seen it with asset managers who will go and they will say you've got to do certain ESG criteria. And understand, ESG is basically just window dressing for doing whatever these people want to do. And if you go to a place like Davos, they'll all meet and they'll say, we got to do all this, and then they try to impose that agenda. And so it's really an elite-driven phenomenon. The ESG is just a way to kind of dress it up, but at the end of the day, they're trying to exercise power over our society. They're trying to change society. They're trying to change policy when it comes to things that they don't like. And so last year, we, as sitting on our State Board of Administration, CFO Petronis, myself, Ashley Moody, we instituted a rule to say when you're doing the pension for people in Florida, particularly like teachers, cops, firefighters, you do it based on the best value that you return to them. And that should be the criteria. That's your fiduciary duty to make sure that you're getting the best returns for the people that are beneficiaries of a pension fund. You do not displace that fiduciary duty to try to pursue ideology. Particularly when it's at the expense of people who are counting on the best investment decisions. And so in Florida, we aligned our investment strategy to be what provides the best returns. Now, some people say, oh, well, ESG, there's some companies that have done well. Understand, what we're doing in Florida, you can invest in anything that makes sense. And so there may be an ESG approved. If that's a good value, you can do it. But what you don't do is you don't circumscribe so that they can't invest in other things like energy and other types of things that are profitable. Because that's not good for the people who are retired teachers, retired cops, and the like. So it's really important that we were able to do it. And we've done with CFO Petronis, these asset managers that are ideological, we've taken business away from them. What was it, $2 billion away from BlackRock? Florida took that away. So we want them to act as fiduciaries. We do not want them engaged on these ideological joyrides, which are not good for the people of the state of Florida. And part of what I think flows out of this whole ESG idea is the idea of a social credit score. And a social credit score is basically ranking your credit worthiness based on whether you're aligning with a certain ideological agenda or not. And that is not something that we should want to see in the United States of America. They do it in China, they do it in other places, but that's not something that's appropriate here. And so we've recognized when it comes to things like these large Wall Street banks, what they're doing to try to impose an agenda is something that's very, very troubling. You'll actually hear from some folks today who've kind of been caught up in this morass where they've been discriminated against by financial institutions just basically because they're not towing the ideological line. At the end of the day, they're engaged in disfavored conduct or businesses. Like if you're engaged in traditional energy production, they don't like that. If you're engaged in, if you have a gun store, you're a gun owner, they don't like that. There's certain things that they don't like, and people feel the brunt of that. So we want to make sure that in Florida, people have access to these services and they're not discriminated against based on their political orientation or their religious beliefs or anything like that. So we understood that that was going to be something that was going to be really, really significant. Since that announcement last year and before the legislature came into session, we launched in Florida a nationwide anti-ESG coalition. So we've got 20 governors joining with Florida to say this is wrong, say we're not going to let our states go down in this direction. And at the end of the day, you have enough states that join. The economic power combined is a lot, and it's really hard to implement this agenda because you've got so much business that you'd be foregoing if you're trying to do it. So we're happy with the multi-state effort. You know, they just did a bill in Congress to pass to say they're not going to allow Americans' retirement funds to be used for political purposes, and you're not going to have ESG for their retirement funds. And that passed the divided Washington. Biden vetoed it. So Biden stood with asset managers like BlackRock over hardworking pensioners, and he's pursuing ideology over the best interests of their retirements. And that is wrong, and that's not going to fly here in the state of Florida. So we've worked with the legislature, and they really took the bull by the horns. This is one of the things that Speaker Renner made a priority, and I think what we're going to be able to sign today is by far the strongest protections for the people of any state against this ESG agenda. We're protecting you from it. So I'll be signing here in a minute House Bill 3, and this really is strong, it's far-reaching, it does a number of things. First, it takes what we did last year with Florida's pension fund, and it codifies into law the idea that the fiduciary obligation is to produce the best returns possible for the beneficiaries, not to be diverted in that task by pursuing these ideological agendas, and that's important. The bill also goes even further than we were able to do with our limited authority to act administratively. The bill applies the same fiduciary requirement to all local funds as well, so that any general tax revenue trust funds, local retirement systems also account for the best interests of the beneficiaries and focus on pecuniary factors rather than political factors. So that's important. The other thing it does, it prohibits the use of ESG factors by state and local governments when issuing bonds, and that includes a prohibition on rating agencies whose ESG ratings negatively impact the issuer's bond rating. So what you have right now is you have these rating agencies, by and large, they have credit ratings, and that's what they do. That's their bread and butter. Now, these rating agencies are basically funded by Florida, counties, other people who get the scores. They're also doing separate ESG scores. And look, if you're going to do something separate, it doesn't go into credit rating, credit worthiness. We don't necessarily like that, but it's not affecting us. The danger, I think, is that there's a movement to take the ESG score and put it as part of your credit determination. So you could be perfectly creditworthy, and then they're saying you're not doing the right ideology, so then you get dinged when it comes to that. That's unacceptable. So what we're saying is, if the rating agencies are doing creditworthiness and keeping that with integrity, great, you're good. If you fuse the ESG with that, then we are not going to be doing business with you. And I think Texas is going to do the same thing. So that's going to make a big, big difference, I think, and keeping this ESG stuff out of basic credit determinations, particularly when you're talking about rating these bonds, whether it's state bonds or municipal bonds. The bill also prohibits state and local entities from considering or giving preference to ESG as part of procurement and contracting measures. They should focus on the best deal for taxpayers. You don't want a local government paying more just to satisfy ESG criteria. So in Florida, that is not going to be acceptable. The bill also prohibits banks that engage in corporate activism from holding government funds, such as qualified public depository, and it gives Jimmy Patronis, Chief Financial Officer, enforcement authority, so that if banks are pursuing ESG, or if they are discriminating against Floridians, then they're not going to be able to hold these state deposits. And Florida, for whatever reason, is one of few states that give banks the exclusive right and exclusive privilege of holding public deposits. I mean, that's a lot of money that goes in. I mean, our budget, our general revenue for the state is probably about $40 billion, and you need to, and it comes in and out and stuff, but you need places. So you're talking about a lot of money through the course of a year that goes. Florida law does not allow credit unions to hold that, and that's more, I think that's more just because of the banks, have been powerful and they've lobbied for that. But we're in a situation now where to have that exclusive privilege and then to be doing these other things with ESG, that doesn't work. And so we are going to require any QBD bank that's doing QBDs that they are going to be doing economics and not politics. And then finally, the prohibition on social credit scores. We don't want any banking or lending practices to be imposing an ideological litmus test on your ability to get a loan, a line of credit, or even a bank account. And they will use this if they're allowed to do this. And you see it what they do in China, and so if you behave a certain way, or if you're involved in certain things, you could get negatively impacted on just basic economic determinations. And so that's really perverting what a market economy is all about. It makes it more difficult for people to be able to do what they believe, and we just think it's fundamentally wrong. This also plays into another bill that we're going to be doing that they're going to pass out this week, and I'll sign probably within the next couple weeks, is saying, Florida rejects the idea of a central bank digital currency, because what they want to do with that, and in China, I mean, they're doing all this now. You will go and you could just get fined, and they'll just take it right out of your digital currency without any due process or anything like that. And so it gives the government a huge amount of power over your economic self-sufficiency and independence. And I think what the danger of the digital currency is that, one, they want to make that the sole currency. They want to get rid of crypto, which my view is if you want to invest in crypto, it's up to you. You can do it. I mean, you can make those decisions, but they don't like crypto because they can't control crypto. So they want to put everything in a central bank digital currency, and I guarantee you, if they're able to ever get away with that, they will impose ESG and social credit scores onto that. And that's going to be a huge reduction in freedom for people in this country. And so what we've said, what we're going to say in Florida is, they haven't done it yet. I don't think Congress would authorize it, but if the Fed or the Treasury tries to do it unilaterally in Florida, we'll have a prohibition against that. And I think that that's ensuring your financial independence and making sure that we don't have a financial surveillance state where they know every transaction that you're making. I think that that's fundamentally wrong. So we're recognizing the dangers with this agenda. It's not your agenda. It's not the agenda of the average Floridian or the average American. This is an elite imposed agenda. These are people that have access to a lot of financial might, a lot of business resources, corporate resources, and they're trying to marshal that in service of their particular political agenda, and that's wrong. And today in Florida, it will stop, and we're happy to be able to do that. Okay, coming up. Coming up now, we're going to hear from a few folks. So first, we'll hear from our Speaker of the House, Paul Renner.
How great is it to have a governor who's willing to stand up against the far left and what they're trying to do through ESG and so many other things. We are very, very fortunate. You know, on the surface, we have this great, egalitarian movement of the middle class investing in 401ks or retirement assets, which means everybody in this room has a little piece of America's greatest corporations. But that's not what's happening, because the people at the top, the BlackRocks, the asset managers, are taking that money and not voting your perspective and your beliefs, but their own beliefs. They're taking all that and basically stealing your voice and mine to control America's greatest companies. So in effect, they control more money globally than the entire U.S. economy. And in doing so, when they call a CEO at any name your American corporation, the answer on the other line is, yes, sir, what can I do for you? And then what they're doing, as the governor said, is imposing a far left extreme agenda behind a banner of environmental, social, and governance, which on the surface nobody would object to. But what they're really trying to do is disfavor things they don't like and favor things they like, regardless of what we at the ballot box want. And so they are driving up our cost. They undermine our national security, and as I said, they hijack democracy, because no matter how we vote in an election, they're going to force these companies to go in a leftward direction. And just a couple examples, when it goes to national security, we were energy independent not so long ago, and we can be again, but what they've done is taken a war on fossil fuels so that they don't want any electric power generation that doesn't come from green energy, and we're just not there yet. And so in doing so, they put our energy grid at risk, they raise our fuel prices, and another example is immigration enforcement. There are entities, private entities, that provide the capacity to hold people at the border. And that's done through private companies. So those private companies, and one that's based here in Florida, go in to get a loan, and they look and say, well, your customers, they operate some private prisons federally and at the state level. They look and say, well, you're a perfect bankable client, because your clients are the state governments and the federal governments. Of course you're going to get paid, so you're an easy lending decision. So they go to the financial side and they say, green check, green check, green check, you guys are awesome. Now go over to our ESG department and talk to them. Oh, well, you got private prisons on your list here, and you're doing enforcement at the border, and you're helping ICE capture, get people and hold them. That's not what we want, and sent them out, rejecting them for a loan, and almost put them in bankruptcy. So what they're doing is they know they can't get open borders and even a Democrat Congress, but by denying our capacity to enforce our border, they can achieve the same ends. That is not democracy, ladies and gentlemen. And so at its core, that's what this bill does. We are fighting back in the state of Florida. This governor is fighting back and leading a national effort to stop this from happening. And we will not give up. We will do all the things that he talked about, and we'll be back next year to do more. But we are going to stand up to these people who are trying to steal our democracy and steal your retirement, and we will not stop. Thank you.
All right. Jimmy?
Good morning. Good morning. Thank y'all for being here. So, I got to tell you something. This has been such a fun ride over the last, start my 5th year, seeing this guy just build up momentum. And what's happened over the last 4 years is happened this past year is only the 4th time in the history of the state of Florida, 400,000 new net Floridians, okay? And when you look at that, people don't move to the state of Florida just by on the whim. They move here because they're attracted to what's happening. They move here because of leadership, okay? So when I look at the policies this guy has been championing, it doesn't happen without a working legislature. And if he's willing to take the hits, if he's willing to stand up, fight against woke, fight against a broken Washington, D.C., it makes it a hell of a lot easier for the legislature saying, you know what, I'll follow that guy into battle. And then what happens? So do the citizens that leave the madness of New York and New Jersey and Chicago and all those other godforsaken places you're never going to live. So, I mean, it's been, for a political junkie like me, for a people person, I came out of the restaurant business. I see all types of people. And I look at what we've seen. We've seen a weakened dollar. The dollar's dropped since the fall. It's dropped 8.3%. We've seen inflation spike. You're seeing interest rates hit at a higher that we haven't seen in years. So we're at 5%. And when what we look at just what our GDP is, our GDP is about 1%, where China's grown at about 4.5%. We've gotten more and more dependent on China, and we've got an administration in Washington that is fine just willing it away and losing all this to a country that has no use for us other than just to take our dollars. It's so unfortunate where we see the BlackRocks of the world and these globalists over in Europe, with which they will shut down energy production using fossil fuels in third world countries in Africa, but they'll gladly send all their dollars and invest them into China-based operations, and they're hypocrites. So, I mean, we continue, we have some challenges, okay? We can't force Washington to do what we want them to do, but what we can damn sure do is we can put up a fight, we can keep it on the front burner, we can follow his lead, we can empower you to hold us accountable. So we continue to move the ball rolling. It's just why people like Daniel Davis put their name on the ballot, because they care. They want to make a difference. They're fighting for the difference in the citizens that we represent. So I was in Villages about a month ago. I met with three separate families, all three separate families. One was from New Jersey, the other one was from Chicago, the other one was from Buffalo, New York. And I'm thinking, okay, litmus test here. I'm a talker. You haven't figured that out. I'm going to find out why they came here. All three families in three different conversations. They're moving here because of the taxes. Not the weather, not their family being here, they're moving here because they know that in the state of Florida they keep their money. They get to spend their money. And I'm a big believer, and I've seen Speaker Renner, I've seen this guy when he gets the budget, that he believes the citizens of the state of Florida, over $1 billion in tax cuts. Give him a round of applause. But there's a belief that you spend your money better than Tallahassee does. And we just don't say it, they preach it, but they also act upon it. But as we've seen most recently with this bipartisan act, there's very few bipartisan acts that make it to the administration's desk. And very few bipartisan acts, but this barring ESG in scoring of employee retirement funds. And even in a bipartisan bill where Democrats and Republicans were agreeing that this is madness, Joe from Scranton vetoes it. You know, the teleprompter has no bounds in what it's been able to make this administration do and accomplish, and I don't have any faith in Washington anymore. It's broken. It truly is broken, and this is why we need new leadership there. That's why we got to continue to lead in the state of Florida. And look, when I see that type of a policy vetoed, that tells me that Washington doesn't care about our firefighters' pension. They don't care about our police officers' pension. They don't care about the retirement of our all they care about is promoting ESG. And again, little by little, we're seeing this governor lead the fight where 20 other states are following his lead. And you know what? Sometimes he may be the one who starts the argument, but they all will follow him into battle. We're very fortunate to have this guy as governor. We really are. And we know we're fortunate to have good leaders like Paul Renner. He has led a legislative body that has made a difference, to the point where last year we had we've got a super majority in the Florida legislature. This guy's won by over 20% the last election cycle. That is because the people of the state of Florida look forward to getting up every morning because they know that their dollars are protected. They know they're living in a state that their children are going to be free from woke, that we're going to have bathrooms made for men and women and not for whatever gender you want to call yourself. So anyway, I'm honored to be here with you, Governor. Thank you for your leadership. I'll leave you one last statistic. And then again, the numbers are the numbers. I don't make these up. These are what California over the last year lost $29 billion of recurring income. That means families and businesses left California. That's reoccurring money that's spent there every single year. They collect taxes on this money, okay? Illinois lost $11 billion, another place you're not going to move to. Florida, over that same period, gained almost $40 billion, okay? The average family of somebody moving to the state of Florida has an income of $150,000. So what does that mean? Where we're in a sales tax environment in the state, when you collect dock stamps in the state, we don't have a personal income tax. That's driving down everybody's cost of living, okay? Because all that money comes in and it just gets funneled back in. And when this governor sees the budget, I don't know how much he's going to veto. I'm sorry, Speaker Renner. It's probably still the role of this guy. He is just a fiscal conservative. He is going to prioritize, but we have good leadership that sends him good projects. They're almost bringing it in for a landing, but signing this bill right now is a hell of a damn good start to protecting you, the citizens of the state of Florida. God bless you. Thank
And
you, sir.
he said a billion in tax cuts. It's going to be closer to 2, right? Yeah, because we did the 500 million for the relief for tolls, which I count, and then I think, what are you at, like 1.8 billion or? Yeah, so it'll be about 2.3 total since the election that we'll have done, which is, I think that's a record for Florida, which is really good. Okay, Laura DeBenedetto, co-owner of Sovereign Ammo in Bunnell.
If you want a picture of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever. Orwell, 1984. My name is Laura DeBenedetto, and I'm the co-owner of a small local startup business, Sovereign Ammo. Sovereign Ammo is a veteran and woman-owned, federally licensed ammunition manufacturer and online retailer. Now, one might assume that with the existence of the Second Amendment in place and with a federal license in place, that it would be easy for us to do business. But unfortunately, that has not been the case. In fact, due to the ESG regulations, we have experienced a lot of discrimination and difficulty. So rewind to 2020. The country is erupting in chaos and lockdown mania. Wasn't that fun? We're living on the beautiful island, my husband and I, of Maui, and both logic and freedom are disintegrating by the day, with our dreams turning into nightmares right before our eyes, and one brave governor defending his citizens 5,000 miles away from us. We made the bittersweet decision to say a very sad aloha to Maui and a very hearty hello to the free state of Florida. We moved to Jacksonville in January of 2021 and immediately began looking for a place to set up our facility. It took us 9 months to secure a lease, and unfortunately that was only the beginning of our troubles. When we tried to set up a bank account, we were made to wait over an hour while the branch manager had to get permission to open an account for us. I was confused, and I had no idea what was going on. I'd never faced discrimination before. My background was in marketing. So then, another time, we signed up for accounting software with financial processing, and we were told that we could get away with it as long as we could, until we were kicked off eventually when a compliance officer would eventually discover our existence and then remove us from the platform. Catch us. Doing what exactly? Doing business, paying our bills, making customers happy? Really? Then we went to sign up for credit card processing, and we were denied by many providers because our profession didn't pass muster for an acceptable business. When we were seeking funding, we could not go to a typical bank and pursue traditional lending because of all of the ESG rules. I had to pursue private funding, which added months to the process. Frankly, Sovereign Ammo almost didn't make it, but we did get funded. When we were finally funded by our investors, the money cleared, and of course we got to work right away, enthusiastically I might add, a lot of waiting. But a few days later, without warning, our funds were frozen, and we couldn't do anything. We couldn't do business for 5 days. Now, we exist in a commodities business place where pricing is a day-to-day thing, so we lost a lot of opportunities because of this. What happened? The bank said they were suspicious, despite the fact that I had been a customer for 25 years. After 5 hours on the phone, they finally stated that they wanted funding verification. Of course, no problem. They immediately received it, but you know what? They still withheld our funds. So when I, of course, left that bank and opened an account with another bank, I had to wait 3 days before I could open it while they checked with their ESG department. They even told me this. You said the quiet part out loud. And they needed to check to see if they could accept our business, just like we'd experienced before. Unbelievable. And finally, the ongoing problems. Our marketing efforts have been hampered by these ESG policies because sovereign ammo is blatantly censored. And yes, it does affect our bottom line. I have had my social media content censored so many times I can't even keep track anymore. And the reasons are some pretty eye-rolling reasons. I've had factual content removed for being misinformation, which we all know is code for the left don't like it. And I've had my account suspended multiple times, a few terminated before we even got going, and most recently I had my most successful account terminated, and I had to beg for it back, and ladies and gentlemen, I don't beg, under the promise that I would behave myself. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I am not allowed to talk about my business in any overt way. I can't post links to my products. Again, it's in the Second Amendment. We can have ammo. I'm not allowed to post a photo of my product. How is this fair? It's not. So these are the ways that sovereign ammo has suffered. And I can't even begin to tell you the level of stress and aggravation this has caused me personally and to my husband, my business partner. It has directly affected my health, our financial well-being, and our ability to thrive as a business. Perhaps the most egregious sin of all has got to be what all this does to individuals way beyond you and me. As a small business owner, I take immense joy in speaking to our customers and getting to know them. These people, they're our people. They're awesome, and I love them. Now, they see me getting censored, and they get mad. And I want to assure you, it's not because I'm so great, but because they see what happens if they dare step out of line. As they see it, we're already under totalitarian rule. What does everything I just described have in common? Why, ESG, of course. Fact is, it's being used as a backdoor attempt to sidestep constitutional protections and impose a biased morality code on businesses. And friends, I am living proof. This framework for measuring the sustainability and ethical impacts of investments, companies, and businesses may sound positive, but it's supposed to. Nobody in their right mind would accept this ideology if the sinister truth about what it was widely known. The way I see it, it's totalitarianism and a social credit system in disguise. It's ushering in a dangerous ideology that hurts children, suppresses liberty, and interferes with the Constitution. And in my case, it's just another way to have a boot stamping on my face and the face of sovereign ammo forever. It is because of this that I offer my deepest gratitude to Governor DeSantis and all of the hardworking public servants who show up every day to make sure totalitarianism never gets a toehold in the free state of Florida. Thank you for making me want to move here. Thank you for making Florida the best place to live and work. And thank you for signing this bill into law. God bless.
What part of Maui did you live in? We did Kapalua for our honeymoon.
Pretty amazing place.
It's good.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, Tina, come on up.
Hi, I'm Tina Deskovich. I'm the co-founder of Moms for Liberty. We are a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization. We help parents advocate for their parental rights. Sounds like a harmless organization. Thank you. We are now all across the United States. We have 275 chapters in 45 states, but our home is right here in Florida. We are based in Florida. Our story, last year, Governor DeSantis invited me to speak at a press conference to talk about what was happening with us in PayPal. We used PayPal from the day we launched, January 1st, 2021. Our first year, we used them for all of our donations, all of our merchandise sales, every kind of financial processing we did through PayPal. We did about $300,000 that year with no problems whatsoever. But as 2022 unfolded, we started really being covered in the media, and the media started targeting us. We were accused of being a conservative, right-wing organization. Again and again, we were attacked. In April, we had a great fundraising weekend where we raised over $100,000 with 5,000 new donors. We were very excited, only to find out PayPal froze our account. We used PayPal to process our shipping, for everything, so it brought us to just a screeching halt. They were allowing people to continue to donate, but they wouldn't allow us access to our funds. It took weeks of phone calls, emails, discussions, debates, sending documentation for them to release just a portion of our funds. And it took a few more weeks to get them to release the rest of our funds. Once we were back in business, of course, I withdrew all of our funds from PayPal and found a new processor. However, we had some reoccurring donations set up there that we couldn't really touch until we contacted everyone, so those were still sitting there being processed monthly. Then, Governor DeSantis speaks as our keynote speaker in July at our national summit. While he is speaking, my phone is going off like crazy because PayPal is removing all of our reoccurring donors. While he's speaking, we had a ticker like on Good Morning America, it was running across, we were getting national coverage as he's speaking, and PayPal is immediately shutting down the rest of our funds. It was crazy. They held them for about a month until Governor DeSantis invited me to speak at a press conference on this very exact issue. Within 24 hours, PayPal released all of our funds, and we've had no more problems with PayPal. The thing is, most Floridians don't get to speak at the governor's press conference. Most Floridians are being attacked by these policies, not just with PayPal, but other entities, payment processing and banks, and they don't get this platform. So today, because of Governor DeSantis, because of Speaker Renner, Senator Grahl, and Representative Rommel, all Floridians are going to be protected and have the same type of platform. So thank you so much.
Thank you. April?
Good morning. HB 3 prevents banks that use politically biased ESG scores from handling state funds, which is our taxpayer money. That is important because these scores are being used to weaponize the citizens of Florida in private and public life based on their political beliefs. Taxpayer money should not be used to punish either side of the political aisle, and this bill makes sure that that does not happen. Education funding is one of the largest expenditures in the state, and in my view, the most important. The FRS pension fund is meant to ensure a secure retirement for over 300,000 teachers and staff, not to become a political weapon against our educators in the state of Florida. Rescuing our taxpayers' education dollars from these politically biased schemes is an asset to all Floridians. And as a school board member, I fully support legislation that protects these retirement funds. HB 3 prevents the use of any rating, scoring, or analysis that considers a social credit score based on factors that include someone who might support energy independence, someone who's against illegal immigration, or fails to meet social justice benchmarks. Social credit scores are contradictory to our American values and individual liberty and should not be tolerated. This bill proves that Florida continues to lead every other state in the nation. We are fighting back against the woke liberalism that has seeped into our government. It stays within constitutional bounds, but has more teeth than any other ESG legislation passed outside of our state. I am thankful for our CFO, the bold leadership from our state legislature, and of course, our great Governor Ron DeSantis for signing this bill into law. May God bless the free state of Florida. Thank you.
Well, thanks to all the speakers. We really appreciate your insight. So this will be, a really significant, I think it'll be leading the country But if you think about it, like, we've done so much stuff this year to lead the country as is. We've got a lot more in the hopper that will be, signing into law over the next few weeks. And I think what we'll be able to say when the dust settles with the budget and the legislative session and all the bills, that there's never been a bolder and more productive 6 months in the history of the state of Florida in terms of really delivering on big promises. And so I want to thank the legislature for stepping up to the plate, and obviously thank the people of Florida for giving us the opportunity to lead. And we're taking that opportunity and we're making the most of it. So let's put this one in the books right now. Come on. HB3, government and corporate activism. 2nd of May, is that right?
It is, all day long.
All right.
You gotta get big smiles right now, because he's signing a lot of photos being taken.
I know. Okay, who wants one?
Oh, man. Get the ladies one.
Anyone else? All right, there we go. We got it done. All right, good work.
Thank you, Governor.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, ESG is officially DOA in the state of Florida, so we're happy. All right, and with that, I can take a couple questions. We got people back in the back there. Yes.
I have a quick question, and maybe somewhat related to what happened to Mothers for Liberty. My question is, okay, let me put on my eyes.
No worries.
Some parents and citizens may have a valid concern about gender matters and transgender issues with children in elementary schools and unfairly in sports. But there seems to be a wave of extreme conservatism recently that is totally anti-gay, as evident in social media and even in government with people like Congresswoman MTG. Can you say here today you support more mainstream human rights like gay marriage and sexual orientation of adults? Yes or no?
So there's a lot in that. I don't know where you're necessarily going. But look, what we've done with the schools is say, it's inappropriate to be having these students exposed to curriculum about things like transgender ideology. It's wrong for teachers to probe their sexuality. But that's just saying what's appropriate for education. And we want to focus on the basics. We want math, we want science, we want reading, we want writing, we want arithmetic, we want all those things. And that's really what, all that other stuff in terms of what people are saying, I don't know. I could just tell you what we're doing in the state of Florida. Yes, ma'am.
To adults, not
Yes, ma'am.
Hey, Governor. So question for you. You had harsh criticisms for how Duval County Public Schools handled new legislation concerning books in the classroom. More recently, the state issued a letter showing concerns about Douglas Anderson High School. What is your assessment of DCPS?
So, I'm not familiar with that letter. Obviously, we have a Department of Education that handles these things on a day-to-day basis. I know the empty bookshelves was a stunt that was pulled, and I don't know that it was necessarily endorsed by everyone in the county, but somebody was involved with that, and it's trying to create a narrative about somehow these books. Now, it's interesting. When we actually show what some of the books have in it that the parents have objected to around Florida, I haven't seen anyone say that any of this stuff is appropriate. No one's made the affirmative case why you should have a book with 10-year-olds where you actually have sex acts being performed in an illustration. That's just inappropriate. We played it on a video, all the stuff. We did an event about a month ago, and we called it Exposing the Book Ban Hoax, and the news stations had to cut their feed because it was too graphic. And so you think about, okay, it's too graphic for the 6 o'clock news, but yet it should be in 4th grade? I mean, give me a break. So that's wrong. So I just think that the school system, and first of all, we've got great people throughout Florida. We've got some of the best school districts in the country. We've got a lot of phenomenal people, but you do have some people that want to try to politicize using the education system to advance an agenda. You don't advance an agenda on the backs of our school kids. You focus on the basics. And so this stuff with the inappropriate material, they're trying to create a narrative to camouflage the fact that some of this stuff has no business being in a school library or in a classroom. And once that's presented to people and they look, very few people, in fact, I've not heard anyone justify that some of that stuff should be in there. And so as long as people are doing it like that, but Tina's group and others have asked, and we've done legislation to just empower parents to know what the curriculum is in the school. You have a right to know what your kid's being taught. You have a right to know the textbooks. You have a right to know what's available in the library. And some of this stuff that is seeped in over the years is problematic. And there is an effort, and I think it's really, really bad, but there is an effort to try to get more sexual material in front of young people. That's wrong, and that's something that Florida stands against, and will continue to do so. Yes, sir.
Governor, it looks like there'll be $75 million in the state budget to build a new University of Florida campus in Jacksonville. Do you have thoughts yourself on whether that's a project you would support? It would be graduate level programs in financial technology, artificial intelligence, that kind of thing, medical technology. Are you supportive of that? And I don't know if it's possible that Speaker Renner might speak as well about why the House decided to go with that level of funding in the budget.
Come on up.
Well, thanks for the question. As I think you know, the community here in Jacksonville, not only the local government, but the private sector has really stepped up to make this happen. As you also know, University of Florida is a top 5 ranked university in the entire country. So what the University of Florida doesn't have is a big city like Jacksonville, being based in Gainesville. And what Jacksonville doesn't have is a top 5 university in Jacksonville. So this is a big win-win for both. It is, I think, transformational for the city, and it's obviously something that I've supported based on the consistent support and the city, and both the city and the private sector delivering on the promises that they would back this fully and match the dollars that we're putting forward. So I think it's a very, very good project.
And I think that what people have said, and I think there's some truth to it, is like, okay, when, Gainesville, University of Florida, good stuff, they're doing a good job, but most 95% of the people leave Gainesville when they graduate, right? Probably even more than that. Well, if they're going to move, they can move to Atlanta or Charlotte just as easy as they can Jacksonville or Miami or wherever, Tampa. And so if you have these programs in an area that has the industry there around it and that is allowed to develop, then there's going to be just inertia. People are going to be able to do the studies, and then they'll be able to just go right in to the local economy. And so having those institutions in places where we have a lot of economic opportunity, really helps build that. And I think it's more likely that people will end up staying in the area if the program is located in this area. And you see that in different parts of the country where, part of the reason Silicon Valley is what it is because you have those universities and people tend to just stay there. You look at other places, Northeast, Boston, you look at Chicago, although Chicago is going through a lot of problems, but they've got some really good universities there, and then a lot of the people stay there and they're able to contribute. So it's good, and I've been favorably disposed to it. I have not seen the line item in the budget. As you know, we go through everything, but I think that there's a clear vision of how this can be successful, and I think there's been huge support from the local community, which really makes a difference. And I know the city, but I think also a lot of the people in the private sector have been really supportive of this initiative, and I think that there's a lot of potential there. Okay, thanks everybody. God bless. We'll see you soon.